Explore the harmony of health and holiness through a Catholic lens. Discover how faith rooted in tradition fosters vibrant living. This podcast rebroadcasts the weekly Becoming Gift segment on Morning Offering on Ave Maria Radio. You can check out the Physically Spiritual podcast from Awakened Catholic for my long-form discussions and presentations, or you can find my Substack at becominggift.com. This is your host, Andrew Reinhardt. Today we are talking about exercise, about movement. In the scripture from the first letter of Timothy, chapter 4, it says, "While physical training is of limited value, devotion is valuable in every respect, since it holds a promise of life both for the present and for the future." So this scripture, of course, is saying exercise isn't the be-all, end-all, but it is saying exercise is of some value. So sometimes you can look at these scriptures and turn them on their head and realize, he's actually kind of saying maybe we ought to exercise a little bit here.
Yeah, they're talking to me.
From 1 Corinthians chapter 9, Paul says, "Do you not know that the runners in the stadium all run in the race, but only one wins the prize? Run so as to win. Every athlete exercises discipline in every way. They do it to win a perishable crown, but we an imperishable one. Thus I do not run aimlessly. I do not fight as if I were shadow boxing. No, I drive my body and train it, for fear that after having preached to others, I myself should be disqualified." And so Paul is using exercise and training here as a great analogy of living the faith, of the discipline of the faith. But I think he's also saying that he actually trained. He actually exercised too. It was a part of his life. And exercise, I think, should be a part of all of our lives. Our Center for Disease Control recommends about 2.5 hours of exercise and movement a week. And it's a common recommendation that we do at least 10,000 steps a day. When they look at hunter-gatherer groups, modern people who are still sort of living an ancient lifestyle, they find, though, that a lot of hunter-gatherers actually do about 15,000 steps a day and are doing 150 minutes of moderate exercise almost every other day. So when we kind of try to peer into the past of our ancestors by looking at modern people who are still living their lifestyle, they're doing 50 to 200% more than what the CDC is recommending every week. So I think the big problem isn't so much that you might say that we don't exercise enough, but that we're too sedentary. In our society, we sit around, we watch TV, we're sitting at our desks, we're sitting in our cars. And so we have to put a lot of effort into actually moving. There's a lot of physical benefits to exercise. It stimulates brain-derived neurotrophic factor, or BDNF. People call this the growth factor for the brain. So if you want to improve your brain health, exercise is a key element to that. It also helps relieve stress, improve sleep, helps with weight management, blood sugar regulation. So exercise has a ton of practical and good physical benefits. Now, practically, of course, we need to talk to our doctor and know ourselves before we exercise. Part of my story, when I was about 400 pounds, I lost the first 50 pounds with not a single bit of exercise. Not because I didn't want to, but because I really couldn't. I realized I would hurt myself if I went and tried to walk a lot or run a lot or lift a lot of weights, because I was carrying a lot of me around. Just living life was a good amount of exercise when I was 400 pounds. The next 50 pounds I lost, I just walked. I literally just went on a walk every day. And the next 50 pounds after that, I just added a little bit of calisthenics. We're talking 10 to 15 minutes of your simple push-ups, sit-ups, squats a couple times a week. So I lost 150 pounds with just taking walks and doing some push-ups and sit-ups at home. So there's an adage that you can't outrun a bad diet. And what that means is if you want to, the biggest factor in sort of your body size, how much you weigh, is going to be what you're eating and what you're not eating. But then exercise is going to have a whole host of side benefits beyond that, that we already kind of mentioned. So with exercise, something is always better than nothing. And we need to put in a mix of balance, strength, and endurance. Meaning balance, we need to be able to kind of hold ourselves up, not fall over. Strength, we need to strengthen our muscles, and endurance. And it's as simple as with your upper body and lower body just pushing and pulling. And you can be creative. Maybe you want to go to the gym. Maybe you want to join a fitness class. Maybe you want to do a calisthenics routine at home. Maybe for you, it's just walking up and down the steps 10 times or getting in and out of your seat 20 times a day. But the reality is, if you look at the way people pass away in our society, the most common thing, of course, is heart disease by far. After that is cancer and neurodegenerative diseases like Alzheimer's. But if we miss those kind of big three, the next thing that's going to take our life in older age is a fall. Literally, we're no longer strong enough to hold ourselves up. So if you want to extend your healthy life, one of the best things you need to do is squat, is pick up weight with your legs, because those main big muscles in your legs, your quads, your glutes, your hamstrings, all of those muscles atrophy significantly as you get older and older. Your body's thrifty, so it only keeps the muscle around you need. So one of the most important things you can do for your long-term health is continuing to strengthen your legs. And that, like I said, it can be as simple as air squats or getting up in and out of your chair or holding a gallon of water and, just doing a little bit of bending on your torso. So you don't have to go and become a bodybuilder or something, but these things make a big difference. And the reality is exercise can be a great form of asceticism, a way of disciplining your body, going through some difficulty, some pain, doing something that's harder than maybe anything else you do during the day. But at the same time, it's healthy. You're not actually damaging your body permanently if you're doing it well. And there are a lot of great Catholic apostolates today that can help with this. Groups like SoulCore. There are a handful of SoulCore groups here in the greater Toledo area where you can go and pray the rosary and exercise together. Pietra Fitness is another great one. There's a few Pietra Fitness instructors around our diocese. And another great one is called HyperoFit. It's a Catholic personal training group where on their app, you talk to a Catholic personal trainer and they help you work out in a way integrated with your faith. So there's a lot of great resources for exercise today in our faith.
I love that. You can't outrun a diet.
And do you find, Andrew, you mentioned squats, but a lot of people as they get older have joint issues.
Mm-hmm.
How do you, what do they do? I mean, what can they do to help their balance and things like that if squats are tough because their joints are in bad shape?
Yep. And so, like I said, talk to your doctor. Maybe it's actually working with a physical therapist for a little bit, prophylactically, to kind of work through it. There's a saying in physical therapy, though, that motion is lotion.
Yeah,
the idea is actually not using your joints can make them more sore. So there can be a sweet spot of using them the right amount, and a professional can be really helpful to navigate that. When I went through, I've had 4 knee surgeries. So part of it, when I started doing air squats, I only went down about 30%. So I started by just going down, a third of the way. Starting small and working up and being very gradual with it, I think is really important for folks. So if you're experiencing pain, listen to your body, but that doesn't mean do nothing. Of course, you need to rest and recover and heal, but sometimes you have to be humble, be humble about where you start, and then be humble about how quickly you progress. Thank you for listening to Becoming Gift. You can catch the show live every Wednesday at 8 a.m. Eastern on Ave Maria Radio. You can also find my long-form podcasts, discussions, and presentations on the Physically Spiritual podcast. Subscribe to my Substack at becominggift.com to find more from me, and don't forget to like and subscribe.